Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name is Jake. How's everybody doing today? I'm feeling all right. I'm actually feeling a little bit robbed of justice because somebody who belonged in a very in one kind of box went into another. Somebody who was a murderer died at the age of 84 without ever there even being a serious discussion of them going to prison for their crimes. They should have been put in a box with a lock on it, and instead they're getting put into a fancy coffin. They're being buried along with the heart of a hero that was stolen and used to keep a villain alive. I'm, of course, talking about Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney had somebody else's heart. He said he didn't want to know who the person was, and he considered that organ that was keeping him alive, that somebody else died to provide, he considered that his heart and not the other person's. He didn't feel gratitude. He didn't feel empathy. He certainly didn't feel anything resembling charity. He simply felt entitled. He felt the heart was his. He felt other people's lives were not important. That's who Dick Cheney was. Shot his friend in the face. Glad Pep Talks mentioned that. And then crucially had his friend apologize for it. That's just a sense of the character he has. Another sense of the character would be the fact that when somebody donated his heart, he said that he didn't want to know who the person was because he considered the heart his. I want to really emphasize that. You could save a Republican politician's life, and they'll turn around and betray you nonetheless. That's who they are. But crucially, the most important thing about Dick Cheney, and because Pep Talks already talked about it, we're going to move on in a moment. But the most important thing for you to bring up every time this gets mentioned, and because when a major politician dies, you get a lot of opportunities to chit chat with folks. It comes up in conversation. I'd like you to point out what Pep Talks said. I'd like you to take this to your crew. When the people around you say, "Wow, Dick Cheney died," and they're looking to demonstrate that they follow the news, because that's really all they're doing if they're talking about it. Most Americans don't have anything profound to say because they haven't thought anything profound in most of their lives. When most Americans talk about the news, they just want to demonstrate, because we are very self-conscious because we know deep down that we're ignorant punks. They want to demonstrate that they know what's going on. So help them. Help them out. Provide them an intelligent, insightful opinion that you can deliver quickly, that can make them seem very wise. And the earlier in the day you do this, the better. So here's one. Because they're going to go around all day chit-chatting about it, and the convenient opinion that is intelligent that you supply, they will repeat as though it was their own original thought. And that knowledge, that meme, will spread. So let's give you one to give to them. Dick Cheney knew, Pep Talk said this earlier, Dick Cheney knew he was lying when he told us that there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. He got Americans killed for that lie. He got over 100,000 Iraqis killed. I believe he got over a million total killed, but certainly in the high 100,000s, because he got over 100,000 Iraqis killed. and and that was just with bullets and mortars and such being fired. The additional effects of the invasion, we literally can't measure because we were at war for 20 years. We went into 20 years of war based on a lie that Dick Cheney told. Americans are dead because of Dick Cheney's lies. So, when somebody mentions that they know that Dick Cheney died today, make sure you know to tell them that Dick Cheney knowingly lied, as in it was demonstrated that he, George W. Bush, and Colin Powell conspired before Colin Powell went in front of Congress to say that there were, in fact, weapons of mass destruction. They conspired to say that, knowing that there were no such weapons. We already had reports from the CIA explaining that Iraq did not have the ability to make weapons of mass destruction. A name that, by the way, conservatives, Republicans came up with in the early 2000s because we definitely couldn't find nuclear weapons. And so we had to be vaguer if we wanted an excuse to invade another country. Understand, that is an excuse, not a valid reason. As in, we weren't looking for a valid reason. We were looking for a justification to do something that we wanted to do anyway. That's who Dick Cheney was. In other words, a murderer who has died. Dick Cheney was a murderer. If you hold that in your head throughout the conversation, it will make the tone, it will make your sentiment easy to track, easy to understand. You might feel tempted to be like, oh, I better say something respectful about this guy. No, you don't. You don't have to say it. Did you feel obligated to say something respectful about John Wayne Gacy? I don't even know when he died, but whenever that happened. What about Ted Bundy? Did you feel like you had to say anything respectful about him? How many people did Ted Bundy get? 20? Because Dick Cheney killed hundreds of thousands of people with his lies. He is a murderer. And he should be remembered like one and not mourned at all. That is what I would recommend you pass along to others. Hey, guess what? Donald Trump doesn't care about you. Donald Trump is, in fact, mocking you. This is something else you should pass along. So, thing number one, when you have centrist types who are trying to culturally flex, they want to understand that they don't actually have thoughts and feelings about this stuff. They're simply trying to get cultural credit, because in this capitalist world, there's precious few opportunities that we have to distinguish ourselves without spending a lot of money, and pretending to know what's going on is one of them. Sorry, that's what I do for a living. But thing number one, when people try to drop the fact that they know that Dick Cheney died today, and that Dick Cheney was once the vice president, and they know that, and oh, aren't they educated? Provide them with that easy opinion. Dick Cheney was a murderer. He knowingly lied. It's not a question that he knew that he lied. We now know for a fact that he knew he was lying when he lied. When he told us that there were weapons of mass destruction, and he started 20 years of war. Dick Cheney is a murderer. He's not to be mourned. Thing number two, Donald Trump is mocking you. When you're talking with folks, give them quick, short lines that they can understand. Repeat those lines so many times. Donald Trump despises you. Donald Trump is making fun of you. Donald Trump has no respect for you. Donald Trump enjoys your suffering. All these things are true. Keep saying it. over and over and over. And when they ask for examples, if they say, "What do you mean? Show me what you mean." Well, shoot, you can show them this here. This is from ABC News. Donald Trump hosted Great Gatsby Halloween party. So, for those of you that don't know, The Great Gatsby is a book about fancy rich people in the Gilded Age in an incredibly unfair time in America where rich people got to act like little petty nobility, basically. And it criticizes those people in that time. Something that's very popular for people that don't really have a great understanding of the book is to throw parties, Great Gatsby parties. That's where you basically dress up like the uber rich. So for Trump, that's just a dinner because he's more than doubled his net worth since he took the White House. That's how corrupt this mother is. He's more than doubled his net worth in the last 9 months. While he is about to cut funding to feed the poor in America, he throws a Great Gatsby party. Let's have a look at how people are dressed up. Let's appreciate what we're seeing.
Despite the government shutdown, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to start making food stamp payments today or partial payments by Wednesday. But it's unclear if the White House will comply. The Trump administration argued it can't legally use emergency funds. Over the weekend, President Trump grew criticism after throwing a Great Gatsby-themed Halloween party at Mar-a-Lago, some calling it tone-deaf, with 42 million Americans now going without food assistance. A White House spokesperson dismissed the critics, arguing, quote, "These Democrats are full of it." Now, with just days to go until the government shutdown becomes the longest in history, President Trump pointing the finger at Democrats.
We voted 14 times to open the country. We have voted 14 times to open the country. And they vote to keep it closed. All they have to do is vote to open the country. And we only need 5 Democrats.
Trump has encouraged Republicans to change Senate rules, allowing Republicans to reopen the government without needing any votes from Democrats.
Pause.
Again, as TSA agents and air traffic place, but to cancel her plan month to.
And we can fix it with the Democrats. All they have to do is let the country open and we'll fix it. They have to let the country open and I'll sit down with the Democrats and we'll fix it.
Beth Dreyer is one of roughly 20 million Americans encouraged Republicans.
All right, whatever. The point being, this guy whose brain is turning into soup. Well, Americans were being told you must skip meals. I know this is the richest country in the world, but we don't have enough for food to go into your belly. Well, Americans were being told that. Well, they were being told, I know you work a minimum wage job. I know you are giving pieces of your body to a company. I know that the cash register sometimes closes on your fingertip and you're going to lose the very shape of your fingers. I know that your shoulder has been getting worse and worse as you load packages. And month by month, you're tracking the decline of your physical health. the knowledge that you're going farther away from your peak every moment, and you're giving those moments to a job that could not care less about you. As Americans are dealing with such an environment that even though you're working those jobs because you must to survive, you still don't have enough for food. You didn't have enough for pride. You didn't have enough for fun. And now you don't have enough for even food because your food assistance is being cut. As that's happening, Trump is literally ripping down parts of America, ripping apart the East Wing of the White House, building a ballroom which you are not invited to, which if you try to enter, you will be shot. A temple to Mammon. Trump is building that, and he goes down to Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago, where Jeffrey Epstein is known to have recruited children, including Virginia Guthrie, from Trump. Child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein recruited out of Mar-a-Lago. Trump goes down to Mar-a-Lago, the famous scene of multiple crimes, including child sex trafficking with Jeffrey Epstein, whose files he will not release to the public, whose death happened under his watch, who Trump stands accused of child sex trafficking with. He goes down to that club. He goes down to Mar-a-Lago, where he kept illegally documents that were never meant to leave a security skiff. Documents that belonged to you and I that he refused to turn over, that he kept in a bathroom. Mar-a-Lago, where a Chinese spy was arrested while those documents were present, unsecured. Mar-a-Lago, he goes down there to throw a party where the ultra-rich dress like they're just regular rich. They dress down and pretend to only be millionaires. And they sip champagne out of fancy glasses. And they revel. They revel in the idea that a baby's belly is rumbling somewhere. They revel in the idea that a black-skinned child is sad. They revel in the idea, crucially, that an ignorant white person is going to suffer because of the things that they're doing, and also that same ignorant white fool is going to see images of them having fun in that moment, and instead of hating them for causing the world that makes them suffer, for causing the conditions that take all the joy out of their lives, that ignorant white voter is going to envy them. They're getting photographed in a moment of pure sadism. They're getting photographed. When you see them sipping beverages, wearing fancy clothes, when you see them cackling, when you see them reveling, at your suffering, I want you to know that they know. Yeah, this is good. This is a good image of it. They know how bad it looks when they're dressed up like that, when they're wearing fancy things in a room where there's clinking glasses and literal bubbly flowing, a room you're not allowed to enter without an invitation, and you will never get an invitation, you fucking peasant. They know how bad it looks. They like that. This is part of it. This is part of the thrill for them. You see those giant smiles? Those evil fucking smiles. This is part of it for them. It's not just that they're screwing you over. It's not just that they're causing literal physical harm to brown folks in the streets. It's that they can mock you to your face. It's that they mock you openly. They mock their voters. They despise their voters. Republicans are not unlike centrist Democrats in that way. They despise the people they rely on. They could not, there is nobody on this earth, I promise you, including myself, Republican voter, there is nobody on this earth who has more disdain for you than the people you vote for. They think you're dumb for supporting them. And they have for some time. Dick Cheney shot a man in the face. And the guy apologized to him publicly. Dick Cheney made a fortune off of getting your sons and daughters shot at. Look up Halliburton. Dick Cheney had financial interest in private military contractors that they turned loose on Iraq. While Dick Cheney was vice president, while Dick Cheney was pulling the strings, while he was working with Colin Powell for a fake reason to invade a country. And he made a fortune. And there was no consequence. There was not even talk of consequences. Beyond Obama politely and obediently saying, we're going to turn the page. We're moving on. We're looking forward, not back. So yes, they mock you. How could Dick Cheney possibly respect you? How could he have ever respected any of us? How could these people ever respect you, conservative voter? They don't. They loathe you, conservative voter. Communicate this. Make sure this is understood. These people despise you. They know it looks bad. They want it to look bad. And they want you to want to be them. While they are harming you, they know what they're doing. They know what the results of their policies are. They know your SNAP benefits are about to be cut. They know that even if you don't rely on this food, somebody in your life does. At the very least, if you got a business, some of your customers rely on SNAP benefits. They know Americans are literally going to have to skip meals. And yet they're flaunting their wealth. They're not just collecting your wealth, but they're flaunting their excess. They like it. They like mocking you. That's part of this. They think you are peasants. They think you are stupid. They enjoy mocking you for supporting them. They know you desperately want to be them. And in an attempt to be them, in an attempt to be like them, You will try to be cruel. You will try to be callous, small, petty. You will act evil to try to emulate them because you want to be at a fancy party. You don't want all this suffering. And when you act evil, you will cause your own suffering because they lie to you about how they got there. So when you try to do what they say they do, you will fail. And behaving evil is something they can get away with because they have funding. So when you try to behave evil, you're a January 6er. You're going to spend 8 months in prison. You might, if you're lucky, you might get a pardon, but you're not going to get a payout. That's who you are. You're the grunt, and they hate you. Look at how much they're enjoying the world you've given them, Republican voter. Look at how much they like rubbing your face in their contempt for you. There's another party Donald Trump's at that you're not allowed to go to. Yet another one. Holding it out of the place where he recruited, he allowed a sex pest to recruit children, including an underaged employee of his, Virginia Guthrie, who, by the way, killed herself. Quote unquote, killed herself. Jeffrey Epstein also, quote unquote, killed himself while in prison under Donald Trump's watch. Last person I believe that visited him was Donald Trump's attorney general. Oh, hey, by the way, when the public demanded the release of the footage from the security cameras the night Epstein, quote unquote, killed himself, we were sent footage that had been edited. Then we discovered there was missing time. They said there was a missing minute that happened every night at midnight as a result of the tapes being rotated for recording purposes. And then we found out that too was a lie. It was more like 2 minutes, 38 seconds that got cut out in Adobe Premiere. All on the files we saw, all that information. So how did they address that? They didn't. They just stopped answering questions about it. But here they are. There they are. Back at the facility they recruited child sex slaves out of. Laughing. Laughing! Ha 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 ha. SNAP benefits were about to be cut. Millions of Americans about to lose the ability to eat. Clink. Clink. Private prisons getting stuffed with Americans kidnapped and accused of nothing in particular, just being brown, maybe having an accent, maybe having committed the crime of being born somewhere else before moving here. Clink. They despise you, America. They really do. How long are you going to keep putting up with this? Now, look, I'll grant Democrats don't respect you either. They don't hate you in the same way Republicans hate you, but centrist Democrats don't respect you. Because, for the same reason MAGA can't possibly respect you. You believe their lies. And they know how easy it is to find out they're lying. I hate to tell you this. It's always been very easy to find out that conservatives are lying to you. But don't get on your high horse if you're a Democrat, because it's also been very easy to find out that centrist Democrats are lying to you, and that's like a revelation to folks. Yes, centrist Democrats are fucking liars, and they also don't respect you because you tend to believe their lies. Who might respect you? A progressive candidate might respect you. A Zoran Mamdani might respect you. Because at least he understands, a progressive is going to understand the mountain of misinformation that's being thrown at you. But don't expect respect from these people. And for God's sake, if you have somebody in your life that supported any of this, do make sure to point out the fact that Donald Trump threw a Great Gatsby party in the hours before millions of Americans were going to lose the ability to put food on their tables. And he did it. He did it out of a club where a pedophile recruited children for sex slave trafficking. His club. Oh, and the child sex trafficker was his longtime best friend. Tell people that. And make sure they know part of the thrill of all of this is for this class of wealthy people to mock you, to revel in their disrespect for you. They don't respect you. They don't respect your culture. They don't respect the fact that you are a father or mother. They hate your children. They will gladly watch you suffer. And I was going to say they'd gladly watch you suffer for profit. Sure, no question there. But they'd watch you suffer just for their own amusement. They might order you to suffer just for their own amusement. At a certain level of wealth, once you leave the tens of millions and enter into the hundreds of millions category, you cease to be a human being. I don't know what you are then, but you don't have the rights of a sentient living creature at that point, in my opinion. I think really the only thing, after you make more than $100 million, really the only thing to do with you is to put you in a truck, process you in a plant, and then send your protein and various other nutrients to fields, I suppose, to fertilize them. That's your only value, is as a sack of nutrients. Because after you've taken more than $100 million, you're just thieving from society as a whole. And you're the sort of person who is better used as, let's call it farmers' assistants, making sure their crops are nice and nutrient rich. Let's go to the best source for American politics, a foreign news organization. The BBC, talking a little bit about some of the elections happening today, and I'd like to talk to you about it as well. Why does the whole fucking world care about a New York mayoral election? This is a good thing. Look, it's number one on their list of what's happening today. There's all kinds of stuff. There's a Virginia race that's very significant. You could have gone to my town, talk about Mayor Hamoud running for re-election. He's being given a run from his money from the left in an already left-leaning. Well, the guy would have you believe he's from the left, but he's not, in my opinion, actually. The point being, there's races all over. It's a Tuesday election day in November in America. Why one city? Well, you could argue that it's because it's the biggest, greatest city in the world. Not biggest, but essentially the world capital city, New York. If aliens were to land in some place where they wanted to make sure the whole world knew that they were there, New York City, Times Square might be the place to go. There's something else, though. And it is something I've been talking about since drunkenly mourning the election last year. And that is that we are going to have to demonstrate what progressive politics looks like at a local level if we have any hope of getting it put in place at a national level. New York is a much bigger version of the local level. If you can imagine a chihuahua so big it's mistaken for a corgi, that's sort of what we're talking about. New York is the local level in the same way that at one point Shaq was a child, even though he was born at 6 feet tall. It's technically true, but it's surprising. New York has 6 million people in it. Well, I think it's 8 at this point. The point is, as much of a population as some countries, and it's a city. So if you are mayor of New York, you are in charge of the fate of millions of people. And if you enact socialist policies in New York, even though that is a city, you still get to see how millions of people benefit or don't from the policy. So the reason everybody is watching this so closely is not just that New York is a big city, but that Zoran Mamdani represents something. He represents a type of politics that has been purposely avoided in America. The Cold War was built around myths about this type of politics. Myths about what America is. The Cold War was built up around the idea that it's capitalism versus communism. But if you've listened to me before, then you know, in reality, you run a government with all sorts of different theories of government. You run a government with capitalist ideas, with socialist ideas, communist ideas, because if you look closely enough at anything, you can describe it by these wild ideologies, but they don't really help you with a better understanding. Case in point, let's turn it around. Let's get a better understanding. Police are a socialist policy. Firefighters, socialist policy by the definition that I have heard socialism accused of. The government pays for these things. You don't pay for it on an individual basis. The government handles that. We all contribute a little bit of money, and the government uses that money to pay for various services, usually decided based on whether or not we are all using them. Because if we are all using them, or all may need to use them, so we need them readily available in case we need them, then the government decides to pay for them, i.e., socialism. Again, by the way, I have heard socialism described. Now, if to you that it seems crazy to call that socialism, I would agree. Because it doesn't make you a socialist to think that the government should pay for police or the military or firefighters or the roads or public schools, yada, yada, yada. We have been locked in to this Cold War fake ideological battle. And the presumption after the Soviet Union fell in 1991 amongst the dumbest Americans was that, oh, capitalism won the Cold War, so we do everything capitalist from here on out. And that has been causing the downfall of America. After that, you can chart the well and true end of American excellence from 1991 on, steadily declining. Because we won a war against an ideology, or so we thought. And so then we poisoned ourselves by only being capitalist about everything. The Democrats, crucially, in the early 90s, switched to essentially being Reagan Democrats. So fast forward through all this pain and suffering. Give me 30 years of horror in the rearview mirror. And here we are, New York City. Looks like we maybe will get a socialist believing mayor. Truth be told, though, even the people in America that advertise themselves as socialists, they're just people who are politically informed. Because by the time you get to the point of calling yourself a specifically democratic socialist, you know enough to realize we use socialism, capitalism, we use all of these things in government for all kinds of policies. And some are appropriate and some are not. And so for the first time today, we might get a mayor who is willing to say, yes, this is a new socialist policy I'm putting in place. We might get an FDR-style New York mayor. Why is the whole world looking at this race? Because the whole country will be. The whole country will be monitoring how New York does. And I promise you, just like the NHS in England, just like every other decent program that helps people, you will have conservatives doing everything in their power trying to hurt it. But even so, people are going to be monitoring how these programs do. And if they do well, hopefully, that will mean many Americans realize that these programs, this style of governance, is beneficial, is in fact the only answer for the capitalist quagmire we find ourselves in. You'll note the government is willing to go to socialism for certain groups. They will go to socialism for the oligarchy. They'll bail them out. They're capable of bailing out the American people, as we saw during the height of the pandemic. They simply choose not to. We cut child poverty in half during the pandemic by making school lunches free for everybody, without question. By increasing benefits. When did we lose that? Was it last year? So it was the child tax credit, not the school lunches. I apologize. But when did we cut the child tax credit? So, you know what? Let me just read this out loud, this summary. Because this actually makes a really good point, or illustrates the point really well. The U.S. cut child poverty in half in 2 different periods due to policy changes. Wait a minute. Due to policy changes, which means it was a choice. It was a choice to do it. It was a choice to undo it. Child poverty. Richest country in the world. First, over a long-term trend from 1970 until 2016. That was the first cutting in half of child poverty. 1970 to 2016. What do you reckon happened in 2016 that stopped that trend? of child poverty going away. What do you think happened in 2016? It was Donald Trump went into office. A 1996 welfare reform marked the beginning of a significant decline and a temporary expansion. Blah, 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 blah. But the second one, a dramatic single year in 2021 due to the expansions of the child tax credit. Now, Democrats, I'm going to break your hearts. What do you think happened to that child tax credit? Who got rid of it? Was it Trump? No, it was allowed to go away under Joe Biden. So all this is to say, America is going to be looking at New York. And now most of the irrational people we have to deal with, they're going to keep being irrational. All the folks that said, well, I don't know if we're ready for Sharia law. That person is a bigot. That person gets their news from a ranting, masturbating madman on Fox. We got to still talk to them. But I'm talking about the regular folks. What are they going to do when Mamdani gets elected? For the most part, they're going to go on not following things. For the most part, they are going to believe every negative thing that's said about him. Or not, because it really doesn't matter. Because for the most part, what's going to happen is they're going to see that New York is still there. They're going to see that he's not crazy. Even if they believe all the terrible little things, all the little lies and misleading truths that get dropped by the CNNs of the world, at the end of the day, the people that fall for this must necessarily not follow politics that closely. And so those people aren't really going to appreciate the full details of the lies being told about Mamdani, assuming he makes it into office, let's hope. And also those people that don't know very much about politics that CNN relies upon. Fox certainly relies upon. Those people are going to look at New York and see that it's there after they were told that it's going to become a hellscape. And they're going to see that, oh, wait a minute. All this stuff about he's a democratic socialist, all that was just the normal ranting and raving. In fact, I seem to recall, me, the normal voter, that they called Biden a socialist. That the ominous capital T they called Harris a socialist. That, in fact, they've been using socialist like a slur this whole time. And in fact, I see that this Mamdani guy's a socialist and nothing blew up. So maybe this slur doesn't mean anything. Mamdani is the beginning of the next chapter. And today we're going to find out a lot about what that chapter in America looks like. Is it the rejection of the only policies that are trying to actually help us? Is that what this chapter is? Are we going to find out that Cuomo, despite having lost once already and running a second time in the same race, are we going to find out that he gets put in charge of New York and that America's learned nothing and deserves to basically just put the barrel of the gun in its mouth already? We'll see. I don't think so. Is this chapter going to be about how Mamdani wins and leads us down a brave new path towards decency, towards competitiveness, towards innovation, where New York becomes the example city for the whole nation, so weathering the coming Trump financial turmoil, because he cannot run a casino. Why would you think he could run a country? We are headed for a massive, probably depression, to be frank. I had to look up the actual definition of what a depression is versus a recession. I hate to say it. All signs are not just pointing at a depression, but they're pointing at a permanent economic change. Are we going to weather this coming very bad economic times better in the form of New York City? We'll see. That might be this chapter. Most likely, is it this third type of chapter in American history where Mamdani gets elected and then the forces of of mediocrity conspire against him and F with every decent program he tries to do? Maybe. We're going to find out a lot of that tonight. We're going to find out how the CNN people react to a win or loss. We're going to find out what the turnout was like, what the exit polls say. I'm looking forward to it. This space will, of course, be covering it. Awesome. But this is, why is the number one item on a BBC story about American election days a New York City mayoral race? Because it is a sign of the times. Because it is representative of a potential major change in U.S. politics and, in fact, politics around the world. Last topic I want to talk about today is what you can do if you are outside of America. Look, let's summarize real quick. If you are an American, what can you do about all these things today? First of all, for Dick Cheney, very simple. Make sure to remind people he's a dick in a box. He's a murderer. Times several 100,000. He's an evil wretch of a creature. And you don't just show them how passionate you are. You just be honest. Say, I'm not, why would you mourn? He killed 100,000 people plus. He started 20 years of war on a lie. He knew it was a lie. It's been demonstrated by all involved that they knew they were lying when they lied. He's admitted it on the record that it was a lie that he told. He lied and got people killed knowingly. That is not somebody to be mourned. Understand that. Understand that he lied knowingly so. So he deceived. And he did so in the name of killing people for his personal profit via Halliburton. All you need to know is he lied. He had a company that profited off war, so he went to war on a lie he told. And as a result, he made a lot of money, and maybe somebody you know got killed. But probably just a bunch of people you didn't know. Know that. Know that thoroughly so you can share that opinion coherently if and when the opportunity presents itself. Change the way people talk about these motherfuckers. If we're going to bury them, because we must, let's bury them in truth. Thing number 2. You already know. If you wanna volunteer for the Zoran Mamdani campaign, Google it, do it. But you already know. You have the opportunity. They're going to be letting you make calls up until closing time today, 9 o'clock. So if you'd like to, sure, go ahead. But crucially, if you are a New Yorker, go out and vote. I'm sick of begging America to do this or that. I'm sick of asking you to beg other Americans. Fucking, if you are in New York, go out and vote. You have an obligation. And there is no choice here. We have tried every other kind of politics except the stuff that clearly will work because it has worked in the past. Progressives are basically 100% of the time always right. The New Deal is why America survived after the Depression. It's how we got out of the Depression. We're going to go into a new, let's say, very Depression-like set of economic conditions. Watch New York. Understand that socialism is the only way to save ourselves from uncontrolled capitalism. Metastasized capitalism, you might say. New Yorkers, go be leaders, please, and thank you. All right, last thing, though. What can you do if you're in another country? Hey, do you know what didn't help us during the Iraq War? Having a bunch of nations patting us on the back saying, look, we're going to support you. We're not going to join you with boots on the ground, but this, that, and the other thing. Stop it. America is attacking other countries financially right now, and literally in some cases. Now, I understand. No, I don't. I don't understand why countries didn't respond when we were doing blanket tariffs on folks. I don't understand. That was an act of aggression, and I feel it should have been matched. But you know what? I have to assume somebody is better informed than me who made the call to say that we need to do this a certain way. All right, whatever. But now Trump is killing people. He's actually murdering Venezuelans. Every day, we're finding out about some more murders he ordered. In the United States, I am not able to stop Trump legally. Rest of the world, I acknowledge it's a failure on our part. It doesn't change the fact that there is a rogue nation killing members of another nation right now. Respond accordingly. If you are in any country that's not the United States, talk to whoever represents you and make it clear that your country must stand against the United States. Do no business. None. Shut down all business with the United States, even if it hurts you, your country. Take the pain and shut down business with the U.S. until the killings stop. Why? Well, gosh, because the whole world let us. Whether you like to admit it or not, it's true. We've been out of control publicly for a while, and the whole world allowed us to get an apocalypse level military built up. Now we got it, baby. And Trump's acting irrationally with it. So, if you let us get away with abusing American might, you are setting a precedent which will damn the world. So nip it in the bud. Cease all business with the United States until the Venezuelan killings stop. Trump has now committed murder, and it is on all of us to respond accordingly. Do not do business with a country run by a murderer. Otherwise, you are not an innocent bystander. You are an accomplice. Thank you so much for joining me today for this lovely little stream. Remember, do we really have Good Morning Comrade next, or do we? I'm going to look in the private chat. Nick, do we have Good Morning Comrade next, or do we have Power Report? That's what I thought. Okay. Up next, we got Power Report with our old pal Dan from the internet. This, however, has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. And if I could leave you with one last piece of advice, never trust Whitey.